All right, guys, starting all over again. Sorry about that audio. Facebook has switched some things up, and it's hard for me to test my audio ahead of time. So, if you could just give me a great comment there, and thank you, Ginny, for letting me know that that wasn't working before. So, hopefully, you all can pop back in and join this training. If you're watching, just let me know that audio is okay. So, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. I think I've got the audio set up correctly. Facebook just keeps changing things all the time and making it so much fun for us to communicate. So, welcome to today's training. My name is Mary Gallagher. I'm the host of this group. I am the co author of Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. Today's training is called How to Raise Kids Who Love to Read. So, what I was sharing is a survey that I sent to some of you in this group. Some of you have filled it out. And one of the questions in the survey was the goal I have for my child is. And I'd like to share some of those responses with you and see if any of those resonate with you. So one parent says, the goal I have for my child is to be happy, easy, almost effortless learning. So I don't know anybody that wouldn't agree with that one, right? Give me a thumbs up if you agree with that. I want reading to be happy, easy, and almost effortless. Is that actually possible? So I can kind of hear the hesitation in her voice. Does reading have to be hard? That's one of the myths we're going to talk about next week is reading doesn't have to be hard. And so I totally give a thumbs up to that comment that learning to read can be almost effortless. Another comment is the goal I have for my child is to read at age or grade level. Okay, perfect. Who doesn't want their child to be on track, right? A lot of times parents come into this group, they're worried that their child is behind grade level or they're not reading at the right level. Sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes it's needless worry. If your child's 4 or 5, that's not really going to be a huge concern for you. Okay. So let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Just give me a comment or a thumbs up if you're hearing me okay. Thanks, everybody. All right, here's another one that kind of goes along with the first one. The goal I have for my child is that he can learn to read without a struggle. I couldn't love that goal anymore, and that is my goal for you and your child. Can we learn to read? Can our children learn to read without a struggle? The answer is absolutely yes. Now, does that mean it's not going to take a little bit of work? No, for some children more than others, but it doesn't have to be a struggle. And again, we're going to address that next week in the Myth Busters about reading. Does reading have to be hard? Here's another one. The goal I have for my child is for him to love reading and to not be frustrated with it. So if your child is frustrated with reading, we want to reverse that. We want to do the opposite and start today raising kids who love to read. And sometimes that means we have to back up from where we are or stop doing the things that we're doing and learn something new. So we're going to talk about some of those things today. This parent says the goal I have for my child is to love reading and to be able to read and write well. Wonderful. Of course, who doesn't want their kid to love reading? Sometimes we do produce kids who can read, but that don't want to read. And there are some reasons for that. We usually see kids stop losing their enthusiasm for reading around 4th grade, and they stop reading on their own, and they only read if they have to or if it's for school. We don't want that. We want kids who are devouring books and reading all the time. So my goal for you is to raise kids who love to read. So if any of those comments or goals resonate with you, then just stay here and let's talk about them. So the first thing I want to share with you is a quote by Mem Fox. And her quote is this, and I shared it earlier in today's group. It says, when I say to a parent, read to a child, I don't want it to sound like medicine. I want it to sound like chocolate. So let's just think about that for a minute, right? We don't want to give our kids medicine. If reading feels and tastes like and sounds like we're shoving medicine down our child's throat, you can guarantee there's going to be a resistance there. And chances are we're not going to raise a child who loves to read. We may produce a child who can read, but they may not choose to read as they grow older. And the statistics about that are just absolutely astounding and very sad. So, a really awesome book is this book called Reading Magic by Mem Fox. And that is one of Mem Fox's quotes. Let me read you another quote on the back. It says, "If parents understood the huge educational benefits and intense happiness brought about by reading aloud to their children, and if every parent and every adult, so that's you, teachers and grandparents out there too, read aloud a minimum of 3 stories a day to the children in their lives, we could probably wipe out illiteracy in one generation." That's a really astounding quote and a really astounding statement. This book is a great little book. It's a super easy read. I encourage you to grab it. I'm sure you can find it at your library. Hopefully your library is open. But let's talk about that a little bit. We don't want our children to think that reading is medicine. We don't want them to think it's a struggle. We don't want them to think it's hard. We don't want them to be frustrated, and we certainly don't want any tears or anxiety associated with reading. When that happens, it's just like you and me. If I'm trying to do something that's really hard and it's really frustrating, or I'm embarrassed, or it causes me anxiety and even physical angst, I'm probably not going to want to repeat that process. So think about your child who has to approach reading every single day. We have to set the tone that reading is just an amazing, like chocolate chip cookies. It's like snuggling with our teddy bear. Reading does not have to be hard. It does not have to become hard. So it may have started out with snuggles and reading aloud, and then at a certain point you said, okay, we're going to learn to read. And then you sat down with some type of reading program and lots of worksheets and told your child to start sounding out words, and they didn't have the skills or the strategies to do that, and there have become some tears or frustration. I hear from a lot of parents about the tears and frustration. Those are common words. And then after they kind of get a hold of what we teach here and teach a child to read, I get comments like, now my kids are asking me to listen to them to read. Now my child is pulling out books at the library and saying, I can do this. So welcome everybody. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. I want to make sure my audio is working so I'm not just talking into the noise of Facebook. So thanks for joining. So that's number one. You always want to start with making reading fun, comfortable, exciting, and safe. So if your child is at a point where they're frustrated right now and they don't like reading, I don't care what age, 4, 5, or 14 I'm talking about, we need to pull back and step back on that. And so you'll need to step back and find some ways to make reading fun and engaging. I've got lots of tips and tricks for you. And if you really have a specific need, let me know in the comments and we can talk about what next steps to take for your child. So reading needs to taste like chocolate, not medicine. That's the number one thing. Start there and start early. So that's point number 2 I'm going to talk about today. Raising kids who love to read. When should we start? Should we start early? Should we start when they're ready? And the answer is all and yes. Okay, so we should start early, but in a sense, we shouldn't start early. So let me just clarify that. We should start early exposing our children to books all the time. We should create a print-rich home environment. What do I mean by that? I mean, just having books everywhere in the home, having books that your baby can read through, those baby board books, having books that toddlers can bring to you and listen to, having audiobooks playing in the car. Yes, audiobooks are awesome and great. Seeing you read and the other adults and children in the home reading, setting aside time that's just for reading, where everybody's reading. Eliminating those distractions like the videos and the video games and the digital. We'll talk a little bit more about should we read books on Kindle and things like that. That's okay, but for our young children, real books so they can learn how to turn pages, so they can point to things. That's really critical, and there's a lot of research on that that's coming out right now. So If you're really interested in that, I can share it with you. So, yes, we want to start very early. We want to be reading to babies out of the gate. Does that mean we should start teaching children to read very early? Should my 3-year-old know her alphabet sounds? No, not necessarily at all. Now, if your 3-year-old is showing signs of learning the alphabet and sounding out words and wants to read, then absolutely go for it. So you can expose children as much as possible and as early as possible and just jump on their inclinations and jump on their strengths. However, you should not start forcing that at all. So I do get a lot of parents that come in the group and say, my child doesn't want to learn the alphabet. And I say, well, how old is your child? And they say 3. And my first response is just stop. I mean, literally stop. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat this, guys. I'm going to be really honest and brutal with you. I've been in literacy education for 30 years as a teacher in the classroom, an online teacher. I have worked with homeschool parents for decades. I have taught Title I reading. I have tutored kids. I've worked with dyslexic children. I have never recommended that anybody start teaching their child to read when they're a toddler. My children did not go to preschool. I did not sit down with them. We did fun, just natural things, and I let that grow and develop organically. I had one child that learned to read in kindergarten. Boom. My other child had to repeat kindergarten and did not learn to read until first grade. But guess what? Now he's an amazing reader and writer. He sends me books all the time. So that's not a problem. You're going to see there's a huge time frame there of where children are ready, and no two children are the same. So you're going to see that in your families. You may have a child that just naturally takes off at 4 or 5 and can start reading, and no matter what you do, it seems to work. And you have other child that no matter what you do, it's not working, and they're 7 or 8 before it's kind of clicking for them. So there's a lot of things that need to happen in those early years. Phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, learning to rhyme, learning about sounds. They need to develop the auditory awareness of the discrimination of sounds. We cannot start teaching children unless they are ready. I mean, that's just the facts. I don't know about you, but I had the same approach with potty training. When they were ready, it was done in a day. If I tried to force it, it was going to be a lot of tears and frustration. And again, that goes back to number 1. We don't want any tears and frustration. So start early, but don't start early, if that makes sense, guys. Okay. So I have heard from lots of parents whose children just took off naturally. And what I want to say about that is really, really blunt. If your child can start to read at 3, 4, early 5, there's not a lot you need to do to make that happen. And there's really no magic formula that's doing that for you. So if your child's learning to read at age 4 and you're using some crazy magic phonics program, trust me, it's not the crazy magic phonics program that's doing it. It's that child is ready and what we call early reader. Okay, there are early readers, and it's an amazing thing. That same phonics program may not work for your next child, and you may just shove that phonics program into them for 3 or 4 years and have no results. And so we know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So if you're doing that, if you're working with a child over and over with the same method or approach and it's not working, then it's time to back up and do something else. So early, but not really early. One of the things you can definitely start with, of course, is the Read Aloud, which we already talked about. Here's another great book for you. This is the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. Jim actually wrote the foreword for our book, Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. He has so much great advice in here for parents. Again, you can get this from the library. There are several editions, so it doesn't matter what the cover looks like. Get a copy of this and get some great suggestions from our parent who had just loved the concept of read aloud, and it's going to convince you that reading aloud needs to be the staple for what you do with your child. Okay, so what's number 3? Number 3 is going to kind of piggyback onto what we've already talked about. So number 1, we want reading to be like chocolate, not medicine. Number 2, start early, but don't start early. And number 3, You're going to have to trust your instincts. And I know that this is really hard. And I know that's why parents really like a program that tells them on Monday, do this, and on Tuesday, do this. And when your child is 5, they should be doing this. And when they're 6, they should be doing this. But I promise you, it doesn't work that way. Again, I've been in education and literacy for 30 years. And I've worked with so many different children from dyslexic to early readers, and every one of them is different, and we've got to find that secret sauce and that little magic that works for them. So you're going to want to trust your instincts on this. First of all, choice. If your child loves books on animals, get all the books on the animals and don't worry about it. Let them explore books that they love, whether that's fiction or nonfiction. If your child loves jokes, get joke books and leave them out on the table. A lot of this stuff Jim Trelease also talks about in here. He's got some great hints and really easy things that you can implement. Capitalize on teachable moments. We talk about this a lot in our book. Let me just share it if you're not familiar. Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. So this is our book. It is spiral bound, so you can lay it flat, you can take notes, you can use it during your lessons. But we'll get back to that in a minute. Capitalize on teachable moments. What do I mean by that? You don't have to have a scripted reading program or a scripted phonics program. You can use what you have. And if you're reading a book and your child shows an interest about something, well, why is that word spelled that way? You can say, you know what, let's talk about that. Take out your whiteboard and explore the spelling. So if your child says, oh, I thought that A only said ah, and you just said a word and it had a different sound. You can start exploring long A sounds with your child. Capitalize on those teachable moments when it comes to comprehension as well, or exploring words and vocabulary. When your child says, what does that word mean? And if you're not sure, look it up in a dictionary. Model that inquisitiveness for your child. But mostly trust your instincts. If your child is frustrated, if your child is crying, if your child is saying, I hate reading, trust what's happening there and take a step back. Let me know what you need. I can help you work through that. I've got some options for you, but I want you to get to the place where you can trust those instincts. Pick up books at the library and start using those. Instead of those phonics readers, you can do it. I'm going to show you how you can do a little bit of that in my new reading boot camp. So reading boot camp, I'm just going to put a little plug in here, starts on 9/1. Signups end on August 31st, and in that we will explore how to choose the right books for your child. So all of that, you need to start trusting your instincts, also following your child's lead. Again, if your child is saying at 3, they start reading words, they know all their alphabet, they want to learn more, run with it, no problem. But if your child is frustrated and you're pushing, you need to step back and just reevaluate the situation. On that note, I have another quote for you. This is actually a quote from me. So this is my quote. It says, better to raise a late reader who loves to read than an early reader who learns to hate reading. Okay, again, we can raise children who know how to read, but our ultimate goal is to raise lifelong readers, children who love to read. And again, going back to the survey questions that I asked you all, one parent said, the goal I have for my child is to enjoy reading as she does when she reads independently. So it sounds like she's enjoying reading when she reads on her own, but when it's time to work with mom on the reading, she gets frustrated. So take the cue from what's going well when she's reading on her own and she loves it. What books is she reading? What is she choosing? Are you pushing too hard? Are you covering things she doesn't need to cover? So if we have a child who's reading fluently, do we really need to work on all those phonics drills? No. And by the way, I'm not a big fan of worksheets and things like that. You all know that. So I really am going to talk about number 4 next. And number 4 is always make books the centerpiece of what you're doing. Not worksheets, not phonics books. I'm not saying you can't use phonics books. If you have a child who really needs that repetition, maybe a dyslexic child, that is oftentimes where we have to start. But always make real books the foundation and the centerpiece for what you do. That's why the name of our book is Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. And of all the programs out there under the sun that I have researched, um, and I've researched a lot over the years to work with children and try to help other teachers and other schools develop their Title I reading programs and things like that. Of all the programs or products that I have researched, the one that works the best and actually has real results is called Reading Recovery. And let me give you a little quiz here. I'm sure you're going to be able to answer it. What do you think the centerpiece or the foundation of the Reading Recovery program is? Do you think that it's phonics drilling? Do you think that it's flashcards and worksheets? Do you think that it's a certain methodology? You're right. It's real books. So even Reading Recovery uses real children's books to teach reading, and that's why that program works. So I'm just going to be as totally transparent with you all as I can be. I will never really promote any type of program to you unless I know that it actually works. Okay, so that being said, what we do here in Teach a Child to Read is very close to the methodology and philosophy of reading recovery. Okay, so you don't have to go out and buy anything. You can use what you have, go to the library, get books. All right, so first we want to make reading taste like chocolate, not medicine. Start early, but don't start early. Always listen to your instincts and let your child take the lead. Always make books the centerpiece. And number 5, encouragement and praise. We all thrive under encouragement and praise. And one thing I want to drill home to you all today is that children are taking risks every single day when they're learning to read. They're encountering new words, they're encountering new types of text, and they're looking and they're going, I'm not sure, but I'm going to take a guess and use what I know. So sometimes there's some guesswork happening in there. That's because we cannot sound out every single word. None of us do that. We all use the skills that we have to learn to read and to read new things. So when your child is wanting to take a risk, if they're a little bit worried that they're going to be hit with negativity or kind of a no, or there's frustration, they're going to just shut down. So I've worked with a lot of children, or I hear from parents, I know he knows this. Excuse me, my nose is tickling. I know he knows this, but he just won't say it. He's so reluctant to read out loud. That could be because he's shy and nervous and lacking some confidence. So you're definitely going to want to give lots and lots of praise. If your child reads a word, makes a mistake, ask them to try it again. If they get it correct, lots and lots of praise. Yay, I love the way you self-corrected. I love the way you went back and reread that because you know it didn't make sense. Let's try this again. I know you can do it because I know that you know this word, candy, and so this word has a D on the front instead of a C. What would that word be? Dandy. And you just continue to offer so much encouragement and praise. If your child picks up a book on their own, just take the time, sit down. If your child asks for books, never say no. That's just you just want to really encourage and praise and be flexible. When you see your child kind of navigating towards different books, definitely capitalize on that, guys. And I just want to end with this idea. Please avoid tears and frustration. We can't raise a child who loves to read if tears and frustration are associated with reading. So no matter where you are, if it is a 4-year-old, a 10-year-old, or a 14-year-old, if we have tears and frustration happening around reading and books, I want you to back all the way up to number 1 and make reading taste like chocolate, not medicine. And if that means you have to stop all of your lessons and you have to put a hold on your curriculum, that's okay, because pushing through that with frustration is not going to win the day for you or for your child. All right, guys, I hope that this was helpful. Please leave your comments below so I know what your questions are. One question that I do want to address that came in, and that was about audiobooks. Is it okay? Audiobooks, pros and cons, and I kind of already talked about that. Audiobooks, absolutely. For children who are struggling with fluency, listening to fluent readers is a great way to support that. Also, to develop comprehension. So if you're reading a book together, you could also be listening to the book in the car. Child could read the book and then listen. For those children that are really needing a lot of support, dyslexia or other reading disabilities, the audiobook could be first to give them a comfort level, and then they can try to read on their own. In very, very, very severe cases, audiobooks might be the first and or only option. But certainly audiobooks add a great support to everything we're doing, and they're fun to listen to. And then if you're working with older children, teens and tweens, again, the same things apply. If there is a lack of motivation, you've got to find the books that your child is interested. I know there's a popular comment out there, or a quote, and I can't remember who said it. Any child who does not like to read has just not found the right book or book series or author yet. So hit me up on those, especially if you have boy readers, because I had 2 boy readers. So I have a great list of resources for you there as well. I want to end with 2 things for you. Where can you go for more support? Where can you learn more about how to implement all of this and more? Well, first of all, obviously, I already shared this. We have our book, Teach a Child to Read with Children's book. Please, guys, if you go to Amazon, look for the 4th edition. Okay, there's some old editions floating around out there. You know how Amazon is weird like that. You want the 4th edition. You can also order that on our website at teachachildtoread.net. And we have a store there. You can order it, and I will send that off to you. And then last but not least, and I mentioned this earlier, I am launching our reading boot camp. So if you have just embarked on this amazing adventure on teaching your child to read, if you've been kind of forced into it, because of COVID and schools being closed, and you've decided, well, I'm just gonna take the bull by the horns and do this homeschool thing and teach my child to read, or I need to supplement what's happening with school because school's not really happening right now, Reading Boot Camp is for you. So Reading Boot Camp starts 9/1. Let me move this out of the way. I'm gonna close signups on 8/31 though, so the link will be good until 8/31. You have some amazing bonuses for being in this group. Let me tell you about your bonuses. The bonus number 1 is that this reading boot camp includes my first course called Build a Foundation for Reading Success, and where you'll learn all about all the stuff I just talked about and a lot more, including how to choose the right books for your child, etc. In Reading Boot Camp, we will meet weekly for 4 weeks. We will go over some of these great things, including strategies and how to choose the right books. And on the 5th week, you'll get another amazing bonus, and that's a free consultation with me. We'll meet on the phone or Zoom, whatever you prefer, and we will talk about your child, whichever one you choose. And in that consultation, I'll ask you some questions about your child, and then I'll give you some feedback and follow up with some suggestions of where you should go next. So often I find parents are just stuck. It's just like, I don't know what to do. And again, we've been trying the same thing over and over. He's still guessing at words. He still doesn't like to read. Fluency is not increasing. What am I doing wrong? What should I do? And I will help kind of detect what's going on there and give you some action items for going forward. Again, guys, I've been doing this for 30 years, teaching kids to read and helping parents teach kids to read. So you'll be surprised what I'll be able to kind of tease out in that consultation. Now that in itself is regularly a $99 value. So you're going to get that with the Reading Boot Camp You're going to get the course with the reading boot camp, and you're going to get the 4 weeks of training in the reading boot camp. And all of that right now is $99.99. So when I offer it again, that price will probably go up because this is our inaugural boot camp. I want to get everybody started on the right path. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to put the link in the comments so that you can sign up by August 31st. We're going to start on 9/1 with our first training about getting your child off to a foundation for reading success. Guys, I don't see any comments or questions. I may have to go back. Sometimes Facebook is slow kind of loading those questions in there. So I will go back and answer any of your comments. If you're watching this later as a recording, thank you. Leave a comment and a question. That way I'll know that it's in there and I can check it for later. So remember your 5 things for kids who love to read. I'll go over them again. Make it taste like chocolate, not medicine. Start early, but don't start early. Listen to your instincts and follow your child's lead. Always make books the centerpiece of what you're doing. Encourage, praise, and be flexible. Join our reading boot camp to learn more, guys. Thanks so much for joining today. Leave your comments and questions below. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.